So we know Halloween season is coming when we see dim lit pumpkins peering out from doorsteps, their ghoulish carvings, and we see children roaming the dark streets in their favorite costumes, going door to door in search of their sugary sweets, saying those famous words, trick or treat. Many Americans celebrate the Halloween traditions by, carving pumpkins and bobbing for apples and all those fun things, but not many people know the history of where those traditions came from. Halloween is my favorite holiday. It's also my mom's and my grandma's too, so we over decorate like we would for Christmas. Sorry. I've been celebrating it for 20 years now, and I celebrate it by participating in every Halloween tradition from pumpkin patches to hay rides. I've been celebrating it, for 20 years, and I've been studying it for many weeks, and I've also been out participating in the holidays. I'm going to talk to you about the 3 historical events that led to some of the most famous traditions that we celebrate today. First, the Celts, who started the traditions of costumes and trick-or-treating. Second, the Romans and the bobbing for apples tradition. And third, the Irish with their carving of jack-o'-lanterns. First, I'm going to start out with the Celts. The Halloween tradition started 3,500 years ago with the Celtic people of Ireland. According to the American Folklore Center Foundation by the Library of Congress, they stated that the Celtics celebrated a holiday called Samhain, which was celebrated around December 31st. Samhain was celebrated to represent the end of the harvest year and was a symbol of death. The dying of trees, crops, and the sun would thin the line between the living world and the afterworld, enabling the spirits to roam among the living. When the spirits would roam, the Celtic people would dress up in costumes in order to ward off evil spirits, and they would also set treats out on their doorsteps for the spirits to take. This is where we got the traditions of costumes and trick-or-treating, and many Americans today celebrate it by dressing up in costumes, going trick-or-treating, and looking for those sugary sweets. Now that I've talked about the Celts, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Romans. According to John Hayward, the author of the Historical Atlas of the Celtic World, Romans conquered the Celtic people in 60 BC. For 400 years, the Romans and Celtics roamed amongst the common grounds, and therefore leading to 2 different types of religions, which caused a lot of conflict. The Romans didn't support the ways of the pagan Celts and didn't support their traditions, so the Romans tried to outlaw their traditions, but instead they just added on to it because the Celtic people didn't really want to stop, and you couldn't make them stop, even though they tried. So they just added on to it. That's when 2 very different holidays merged into one. The Romans celebrated the festival of Pomona. Pomona was a Roman goddess who represented love and fertility and harvest, which led to the symbol of her apple, kind of like it's where apples and harvest come from. And they would celebrate her by playing games. One of the most common games that they played was bobbing for apples, which was geared towards young, unmarried women who would try to bite into an apple either hanging from a tree or floating in water. And the first woman to bite into an apple without using her hands would be believed to be the next one to be married. Well, today in America, we play bobbing for apples for fun and not to get married. Now that I've talked a little bit about the Romans, I want to talk more about the Irish. I mentioned earlier that the Celtic people roamed the lands of Ireland. Well, the Irish people held on to their ancient traditions, but added on some new customs. One of the customs that they added was the carving of gourds, which is like potatoes or beets or anything like that. The myth started hundreds of years ago by the Irish, and it was believed to be started by a man called Stingy Jack. Stingy Jack was a drunk man who was very mean and hateful and stingy, and he was true to his name. He decided to have a drink with the devil one day, but didn't want to pay for it, so he tried to trick the devil into turning into a coin so he could pay for the drinks. Well, he did, and being true to his name, he kept the coin in his pocket next to a silver cross so that the devil could not escape. After a couple years, he decided to make a deal with the devil again, letting him go if he promised to leave him alone and not claim his soul after he died. Well, shortly after, Jack died, like everyone will. Sorry. But he went to the pearly gates of heaven where God denied him entrance because he didn't want a man like that in heaven. So he turned to the gates of hell, where the devil was still angry with what he had done. He turned him away, and keeping true to his word, he didn't claim his soul, leaving Jack to wander the earth with a dark coal and a pumpkin, walking around looking for a home. The Irish believed that they would carve ugly, scary faces into usually potatoes, because that's what potatoes are, and put them in their window in order to keep the spirit of Jack out. Well, in 18th century potato famine, 1.5 million Irish immigrants moved to America, bringing over their gourd carving tradition. Once in America, they slowly went from potatoes to pumpkins, just because of the abundance of pumpkins that we have here in America. There's a lot. But now Americans go pumpkin picking at pumpkin patches and spend all day picking out that gross stuff inside and carving pumpkins because we like to, and then we put them on our doorstep. So I have talked to you a little bit about the history of some of the most famous traditions that we practice in America today during Halloween season. In conclusion, I have talked about the Celtic people who started the traditions of costumes and trick-or-treating. Second, the Romans with their bobbing for apple tradition, and third, the Irish with their carving of jack-o'-lanterns.